Hey everybody, Josh Sigurdson of World Alternative Media here, joined by Kingsley Edwards of Flote.app, and we're going to talk about some interesting things that are affecting California right now. And I have to go first to you and ask you, one thing that you notice driving around Las Vegas here, what is the number one thing that seems to stand out to you?
Well, for years, it's been a lot of the crazy drivers, and a lot of those crazy drivers have California license plates. So.
Yeah, there's something happening there. I wanted to go into that a bit because something that a lot of people in Nevada, in Florida, and in places like Texas are noticing is Californians, New Yorkers, New Jersey, a lot of different very centralized, socialized states that we're seeing a mass exodus from. And I think this is really important. You can see the little flag we got behind me here, and a whole update thing happening on my screen here. That's nice. But you can see California Republic. You might as well add the communist symbol at this point because it's gotten so over the top. The vast amounts of debt that we're witnessing in California is contributing to this. But I wanted to go into this article here that's from reviewjournal.com, which says more than 141,000 people moved to Nevada in 2018. How many were from California? And it says in this article, more than 50,000 Californians moved to Nevada from July 2017 to July 2018, the second highest amount in the past 10 years, according to newly released U.S. Census Bureau estimates. California plays an unparalleled role in Nevada's growth. According to the estimates, nearly 4 in 10 people who moved to Nevada from another U.S. state in those 12 months were from California. And I quote, "There are more adults in Nevada that were born in California than born in Nevada," said Robert Lang, executive director of Brookings Mountain West at UNLV. Overall, about 127,000 people moved to Nevada from other states, and another 14,000 came from abroad. Texas and a collection of western states, including Arizona, Utah, and Washington, were other major migration hubs. Much of the Silver State's allure lies in the fact that Nevada has no state income tax and a lower cost of living in its major cities than California, Lang said. So that kind of hits a nail right on the head immediately, which is that there is no state income tax. Now, it's interesting, Kingsley, because we're seeing this massive move from California. California has so many problems it's impossible to account for in one video. But why do you think we're seeing such a great move, exodus from places like California, and I guess other states as well that are heavily centralized, to places like Nevada?
I think it's pretty obvious. The high taxes, lots of regulations. We were just discussing one earlier that I think we're going to bring up, and it's just Nevada's just a more free state. The problem is that when they move, the people that move from California, they still, vote for the same types of regulations. So now we see that Nevada, has basically turned completely, Democrat, and which I don't really have a problem with Democrats, but I have a problem with a lot of the regulations that they propose. So it's really affecting, housing prices. It's affecting the homeless population. We're seeing a lot of regulations that are from California starting to develop here. We have a Democrat governor now that's proposing a lot of things and pushing a lot of things forward. So we're basically becoming kind of a second California slowly but surely.
Yeah, it's really strange because California holds such a vast amount of debt, considering the whole country as a whole. But I also have to note that Nevada is one of the more free places in this country. But ironically, more government land in Nevada. There's more government land, government-owned land, BLM land, etc. in Nevada than almost any place in the United States. It has some of the most government-owned land. It's mostly desert. You got to wonder why they even want that land. But anyway, government wants as much land as possible. And then at the same time, Clark County is incredibly tyrannical. And it's interesting because you have this strange mix of cowboys, kind of anarchy in a lot of ways out in Las Vegas and around Nevada. The Bundy standoff, we all remember that very well. We recently interviewed Ammon Bundy here at WHAM. And it's interesting because you see that, but then you see at the same time this contrast of there's kind of a police state here. You see a lot of Californians pushing the things that brought down California in the first place? Let's go into this article from actually back in April of 2018, which says a lot because you got to take this and consider how much it's grown since then. But it's from Forbes magazine. It says the top 4 reasons California is unsustainable. And it goes into multiple reasons like California's infrastructure deficit and that California's roads are some of the poorest in the nation and rapidly getting worse. It's funny because there's so much money being pumped into these roads. I always hear, what about the roads? And then you go to places that are heavily government controlled, like Canada, for example, and the roads are absolutely terrible. And then getting further into it, it says in 2017, California's governor, Jerry Brown, estimated California was facing $187 billion in unmet infrastructure needs. However, the Bay Area Council Economic Institute pegs the cost of California's unfunded infrastructure needs at up to $737 billion and possibly as much as $765 billion. And it goes on, government debt is another major reason. California state and local governments owe $1.3 trillion as of June 30th, 2015. And then it says, in other words, that $1.3 trillion in debt is the amount to which California governments admit. Other studies believe it to be more. Indeed, one study says it is actually $2.3 trillion, and a recent Hoover Institute stated that there is over $1 trillion in pension liability alone, or $76,884 per person. And then, of course, California's taxes and regulations. It's just crazy how highly taxed it is. And California has a 10th highest sales tax. And then moving on, it goes into the California governments and how much spending the California government does, and how that kind of adds up versus the rest of the country. This is why a lot of people want California to break away, including the Californians themselves. But I mean, what do you think about the living conditions in California? You've been to California many times. We were just in San Francisco a few months ago. We've been to LA, all these places, San Diego, and what do you see there? You see vast homelessness, not as much in San Diego as the rest of the state, but vast homelessness, and it's alarming. The housing prices are crazy. What do you think about the living conditions in a place like California?
Yeah, it's really sad to see because, I've been, especially San Francisco. I used to live in San Diego, but just seeing San Francisco, even recently, every time I go there now, it's becoming actually more scarier and scarier, even just to walk down the streets, because people are just getting so desperate. And it's really sad to see because, they have to deal with, the rising housing costs because of a lot of the regulations. And all the big tech being centered, especially around, now not only just San Francisco, but also LA and San Diego. So it's just becoming worse and worse. And I wish I would hope that they could break away if they want to, or like one thing that Tim Draper proposed is that they break the state into 6 states or 3 states, right. And I think that would just provide, decentralization, better governance for the people, at least more local. Right. And I think that's the way it should be.
Well, I couldn't help but think of one of your friends that we visited in San Francisco. I won't say his name, but we were talking about the housing prices, and he was saying, I said, well, how much are you paying for this? And it's a nice place, and it's a nice area, but also it's not very big. And I asked, like, how much are you paying a month for this? And he's like, well, we have rent control, so it's not as bad. I'm like, okay, how much are you paying for this? And he's like, $3,600 a month. I'm like, this is crazy. People are working 2 jobs in San Francisco in many cases and still can't afford to have an apartment, a small apartment. I mean, we're seeing families. It used to be, the father would go out and work and the mother would take care of the family and all that kind of stuff. And what would happen? The government needed more tax cattle. They pushed a huge propaganda machine that women should work. I'm all for it. But obviously there was a reason behind it. There was ulterior motives. And that all added up to now both parents are out working 2 jobs and they can't put food on the table for the family. I almost made the George Bush mistake of putting food on your family. You don't want to do that. So I just have to point out, that is saying a lot when these places that have all these safety programs, government safety programs, police everywhere, and you're afraid to walk around at night and you can't afford to have a place to feed your family, and they keep talking about we need to end poverty and all that kind of stuff. And it just keeps getting worse. What does that tell you about government, folks? And with that said, something else that says a lot about government is this new issue regarding Uber. And we'll just get into this article. It says truckers sue California, say new gig economy law would kill 70,000 jobs. And as the article goes into, the California Trucking Association on Tuesday filed what appears to be the first lawsuit challenging a sweeping new labor law that seeks to give wage and benefit protections to workers in the so-called gig economy, including rideshare drivers at companies such as Uber and Lyft. The legislation violates federal law and would deprive more than 70,000 independent truckers of their ability to work, the association said. Many would have to abandon $150,000 investments in clean trucks and the right to set their own schedules in order for companies to comply with the law. It says illegally infringes on interstate commerce. And I quote, independent truckers are typically experienced drivers who have previously worked as employees and have by choice struck out on their own. We should not deprive them of that choice, Association CEO Sean Yadon said in a statement. The law set to take effect January 1st makes it harder for companies to classify workers as independent contractors instead of employees who are entitled to minimum wage and benefits such as workers' compensation. And I quote, we expect big corporate interests, especially those who have misclassified their workers for years, to take this fight back to the place they know they can delay justice for workers, the courts, the bill's author, Democratic Assemblywoman Lorena Gonzalez of San Diego said in a statement. So let's talk about that a little bit. I mean, it gets a lot deeper than that, but essentially, again, under the guise of helping workers, they are causing vast job cuts. People are getting more and more impoverished. The government already takes away like 65% of their money in total if you count all the sales taxes and everything else in California. I mean, what do you think about this regulation on top of everything else that we're seeing in a place like California?
I mean, it's just a shame to see because so many good things, have come from California in the past. I mean, we've had, just Hollywood movies and a lot of technical innovation. And especially with the gig economy, I mean, that's really where tech kind of shines. I mean, the power of the internet, the power of us all having our cell phones enables us to do, so many things just with our smartphone. And so the fact that they're starting to make that harder for people and companies. I mean, it's just like they just don't understand basic, economics or math and how business works. And they just don't think ahead of, hey, this regulation is going to affect these people in this way, in a negative way. And so now we see the exodus to Nevada and also Texas. I know is number 1 or 2 as far as the exodus, and it's going there in Texas as well. So we're seeing it in Austin and now even in Dallas and Houston, where the same thing. They're proposing the same regulations. It's a cyclical thing. It's like you would just wish they would be able to kind of figure it out by now.
Right, and I find it interesting that I was reporting several years ago. There's exodus from Chicago as well. No wonder. But also, just talk about New York. A couple years ago, I remember talking about how there's one businessman, actually New Jersey. Sorry, some people aren't going to like that. Where this one businessman who was bringing billions of dollars into the economy in New Jersey said the taxes are too high. I'm going to leave if you guys don't lower the taxes. And what happened? They raised taxes the next month, so he left and he brought billions of dollars out of the state with him to Florida. Again, no state income tax. And it's just interesting how, you see a lot of virtue signaling around government programs and, welfare and more money and more regulations and taxes, etc. You always hear all these, virtue signaling coming from like California and places like that, which, by the way, I love California. I want to point that out. It's a great state and some great people there too. But there's obviously a blind allegiance to government in a lot of these places. And, you hear all this virtue signaling about all these regulations, taxes, etc. But then when push comes to shove, people are faced with the reality of vast government everywhere they look. And then you find them all flooding into places like Nevada and Arizona as well, and Texas and Florida. And it says a lot about these programs. And of course, many of them, again, come to Nevada and try to push their the same things that brought down California. California is falling. The debt is crazy. They want to separate. Let them separate. I say that as most Americans would probably feel the same about California separating because they have to pay for it. And I mean, at the end of the day, I think it's important that you really look at that as a case study in why all of this oversight and all this taxation and regulations are a problem, and why it's a bad idea in general. It's a trap, guys, and it always ends with people being more poor. And again, you go to these places that have a huge government, the roads always seem terrible. There's poverty everywhere, and this isn't just the United States. It's everywhere you go in the world. I mean, Paris, France, is homeless people everywhere. The homeless rates are skyrocketing in the UK, in Germany. Everywhere you go, there's just vast homelessness, and it's starting to become more and more of an issue everywhere you go. The everything bubble, government, banks, central banking, inflation, all that kind of stuff, and it all adds up to people having a really bad time. So anyway, I want to finish it off with that, but first, before we go, I want to just go to Kingsley here regarding Flote.app, which I think everyone needs to join. Said it a few times before. I'll say it again. We are on Flote.app, Flote.app. I want you guys to go find me at Josh Sigurdson and at Wham, W-A-M, as well as at King. You can find Kingsley over there. And, of course, you started Flote as a way to answer the concerns of all these people that are getting shadow banned, censored, unable to post, not able to use a good application because Facebook has just gone so downhill. YouTube is about to probably delete my channel in the next month or so. I mean, why did you bring Flote to the masses, and why do you think people should join?
I just thought of this tagline, so I'm not sure if it's good, but we're trying to create basically like a digital emancipation for the internet class. And,
a lot of syllables.
Yeah, but we're we just want to create a place where communication and also payments can kind of flow freely. And like I mentioned on our previous video, removing us and really any company or authority as a middleman between two people interacting. And then that's the way people interact in person, and we're really recreating just a human-to-human interaction, but online.
Right, and you've said it before, rolling the kind of the dates back a bit, rolling the years back a bit on a thing like Facebook or YouTube, the way it used to be like 5, 6, 7 years ago, when you could actually communicate on there. There's still some restrictions back then, which you won't have, but I mean, going forward, it's kind of daunting for any creator on YouTube or Facebook or Twitter or anywhere, considering the amount of censorship and how everything's becoming hate speech, and you can't say that, and it's wrong and must be paid by Russia or whatever it might be. And in the long run, a lot of people are worried that they're just going to lose their channel, lose their account, be unable to say things, or to self-censor to the point where they can't tell their own truth anymore. And the spread of free information has never been more important. And going into the 2020 elections, we have to get ready for the December 10th, 2019 deadline for the terms of service on YouTube, where it's going to change drastically, and we're probably going to see millions of accounts deleted, if not completely demonetized, and for the most arbitrary reasons. So everyone should go to Flote.app, Flote.app, to find us, because that's where we're going to be, because sooner or later it'll be too late. Once we're gone off YouTube, we can't tell you where to go. So join now, join today. You're on the bottom floor of something that I do believe truly has great potential going forward as far as replacing the old guard social medias. So anyway, I appreciate you joining us today. And until next time, remember, don't trust the government. It's pretty simple. Just don't trust the government, guys. Until next time, this is Josh Sigurdson with Kingsley Edwards signing out from World Alternative Media. Find the truth, be the change. Like what you see here at Wham, don't forget to check the links below. GoFundMe, Patreon. We cannot do it without you guys. Every donation is extremely, extremely appreciated, as we're getting incredibly shadow banned. We've lost 80% of our audience since January of 2019 and counting. They are ripping us apart here on YouTube, and the only thing we could do in the meantime as we prepare for the next big step is to ask for help from the viewers that support our free information that we try to post on a daily basis. You can also find us on Subscribestar, where just $1 a month, that's all it takes, $1 a month, is all it takes to truly make a huge difference. If everyone gave $1 a month, it would change everything for independent media, and we could win this information war, and we can defeat the mainstream medias eventually. And of course, on Subscribestar, we post subscriber-only content that you'll only see on Subscribestar. So make sure to pledge there, become a patron. That makes a huge difference, guys. And also, don't forget to check out our Bitcoin address below in the comments and description, as well as on the screen for you to scan if you please. And also, don't forget to subscribe to us on the alternatives. We will likely be deleted by YouTube in the next 2 years. It's already happening on a vast scale, so make sure to find us on Flote.app. That's FLOTE.app. at Josh Sigurdson, as well as at WAM, W-A-M. Flote.app is replacing every social media, and I mean, it's just incredible the opportunities it provides for not just creators, but for the average person who wants to get away from these nannies telling them what they can or cannot see. They plan to replace Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Twitch, Tumblr, Reddit, and Patreon. You could subscribe to us on Flote and pledge with cryptocurrency. It's really innovative. We are also on BitChute at World Alternative Media, as well as so many others, Minds, PocketNet. You can find us at World Alternative Media on Instagram. There's many options. And finally, don't forget to join us at Anarchapulco 2020, the famous event, the best liberty event known to mankind, other than perhaps Anarcho Vegas 2020. There are 2 major events coming up that we are extremely excited about, and you can use promo code WAM, that's W-A-M, and save 10% on your tickets to these legendary conferences. There's so many amazing people speaking there. You won't want to miss it. So make sure to support in any way you can, even if it's just sharing our videos, pressing like, pressing to be notified. Anything helps, folks. You are the change you wish to see. Thanks for watching, everyone. And until next time, this is Josh Sigurdson signing out from World Alternative Media. Find the truth, be the change.
I'm sure you have already changed people's minds in your young age because you're involved, and I like that.